Long before history was written, before kings and empires, before humanity walked the earth, there were forces beyond our understanding. Beings of immense power arriving from the heavens. The Sumerians, the first civilization to record history, called them the Anunnaki, those who from the heavens came to earth. What were these beings? Gods? Visitors from the stars? Or something far stranger? Tonight, we begin a journey to uncover the origins of the Anunnaki and the story they left for humanity in stone, myth, and memory. From the darkness of space, a celestial visitor approached, a planet unseen, a world hidden from human eyes. Legends call it Nibiru. Some claim it is the home of the Anunnaki, a place far beyond our science, yet strangely entwined with Earth's destiny. According to Sumerian texts, the gods descended from the skies in fiery chariots. They brought knowledge, power, and a vision for our world. But their arrival was not gentle. It would change the course of human history forever. Imagine standing on the banks of the Tigris and Euphrates, looking up at the sky, seeing beings larger than men, shining with light and authority. The Sumerians wrote it down, carved it into clay, and passed it down through generations. These weren't mere myths. They were records of events they witnessed. Enki, Enlil, Anu, names that would echo through history. Each god had a purpose, a domain, a plan. But their presence was not just divine, it was revolutionary, shaping humans in ways we are only beginning to understand. The Anunnaki were not content to observe, they intervened. They taught humans to farm, to build, to write, and to worship. They shaped early civilizations, leaving symbols and knowledge buried in stone. But perhaps their most controversial act was the creation of mankind itself. Was humanity a product of evolution or of deliberate engineering by these sky beings? Some call it myth, others call it memory. The story of the Anunnaki is a puzzle scattered across time. Their names appear in texts thousands of years old, yet their existence remains a question. Were they mythological constructs of early humans, a way to explain the cosmos? Or were they real visitors from another world, shaping our destiny long before history began? In this documentary, we will explore the evidence, examine the myths, and follow the trail left by the Anunnaki to uncover the origins of the beings who may have created humanity itself. If you're fascinated by mysteries that have shaped humanity, by ancient secrets hidden in plain sight, make sure to subscribe and like this video so you won't miss the journey as we uncover the truth about the Anunnaki. To understand the Anunnaki, we must first understand Sumer, the land where history itself began. Nestled between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, Sumer was a fertile crescent, a place where life thrived despite the harsh desert surroundings. Here, humanity took its first steps toward civilization, building the first cities, inventing writing, and crafting a culture that would echo through the ages. This was a land of innovation, mystery, and observation, a world where humans looked to the heavens for answers, and perhaps where the Anunnaki first appeared. Sumerians were pioneers, farmers, builders, astronomers, and record keepers. They invented cuneiform, the earliest known writing system, carving their knowledge into clay tablets. They built massive ziggurats, temples reaching toward the sky, dedicated to the gods they worshipped. And on these tablets, they recorded stories of beings who came from the heavens, the Anunnaki. These gods were said to hold dominion over humanity, to govern cities, nature, and destiny itself. Their presence shaped laws, culture, and the very understanding of life. Who were the Anunnaki? The name itself means those who from the heavens came to earth. Among them were Anu, the sky god, Enlil, the ruler of earth, Enki, the god of wisdom and creation, and Ninhursag, the mother goddess. Each god had a domain, a purpose, and a plan for humanity. The Sumerians described them as powerful, immortal beings who descended from the stars, bringing knowledge, laws, and even genetic gifts. These were not just stories. They were a record of a worldview where humans and divine beings were intertwined, where the sky itself held authority over Earth. Why do these stories matter? Beyond their mythological wonder, the Anunnaki myths offer insight into the earliest human understanding of the cosmos and society. They shaped culture, law, agriculture, astronomy, and religion. The legacy of the Anunnaki echoes in later civilizations, in Babylon, Egypt, and even modern interpretations of ancient astronauts. These myths were more than tales. They were the Sumerians' attempt to explain creation, life, and their place in the universe. And centuries later, we are still trying to decode their meaning. We have glimpsed the world of Sumer and the beings who shaped its destiny. The Anunnaki were more than myth. They were witnesses of human beginnings, architects of civilization, and perhaps the creators of humanity itself. But who were they, really? What were their motives, their conflicts, their secrets? To answer these questions, we must look closer at the gods themselves, their hierarchy, their personalities, and the roles they played among humans. To understand the Anunnaki, we must step into a world older than Egypt, older than Babylon, older than every civilization we know. A land where the first cities rose from the desert sands, where writing, mathematics, and astronomy were born, and where the earliest stories of gods descending from the heavens were carved into clay. This land is Sumer. 6,000 years ago, in the fertile valley between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, something extraordinary happened. Humanity leaped from scattered tribes into organized cities. Sumer was not just a culture, it was a revolution. Here we find the first written language, the first legal systems, the first schools, the first kingships, the first monumental temples. But Sumer's greatest legacy is its mythology. Across the Sumerian landscape, massive structures dominated the horizon. The ziggurats, multi-story temples built as stairways between earth and sky. According to the Sumerians, these were not symbolic. They were literal landing places where gods could descend and where selected humans could ascend. Every major Sumerian city was home to a ziggurat dedicated to a specific deity, often one of the Anunnaki. Unlike later civilizations, Sumer was not built on superstition. Their knowledge was precise, scientific, structured. They recorded planetary cycles, lunar phases, star positions, distances and angles, agricultural patterns. Many researchers ask, how did the very first civilization on Earth begin with such advanced understanding of astronomy and mathematics? The Sumerians gave a simple answer. The Anunnaki taught us. In Sumerian texts, the gods were not distant spiritual beings. They were physical, present, walking among human cities. They ate, they slept, they fought, they traveled, and in the earliest records, they ruled. Some of the most important included Enki, the wise creator and engineer; Enlil,
ruler of the skies and storms; Anu, king of the heavenly realm; Inanna, goddess of war and passion; Ninhursag, mother of creation. But above all stood a collective name, the Anunnaki, those who came from the heavens. More than 500,000 clay tablets have been discovered, and many mention the Anunnaki directly. These are not myths written thousands of years later. They are eyewitness records from the people who lived in Sumer's cities. They describe the Anunnaki as powerful beings who descended to Earth long before the rise of human civilization, who shaped the land, who created order out of chaos, and who, according to some interpretations, may have engineered the first humans. Sumer is unlike any other ancient culture. When we study Egypt, we look at tombs. When we study Greece, we look at philosophy. But when we study Sumer, we look at origins, the beginning of writing, the beginning of kingship, the beginning of astronomy, the beginning of human civilization. And woven through every part of their culture is the story of the Anunnaki. If the Sumerians invented their gods, why do their deities resemble advanced beings traveling across the heavens with knowledge far beyond the capabilities of the ancient world? Did they witness something? Or someone? To answer that, we must journey deeper, through the tablets, the myths, and the archaeology, to uncover who the Anunnaki truly were, and why they came to Earth. In the next chapter, we examine the most controversial claim of all, the origin of humanity according to the Sumerians.
Before we can understand the Anunnaki, before theories of ancient astronauts, genetic engineering, or forgotten civilizations began to circulate, we must return to the source. Not modern interpretations, not books written thousands of years later, but the original Sumerian tablets, the earliest written records in human history. Around 3500 BCE, long before pyramids, long before Greek philosophy, long before empires rose and fell, the Sumerians created something revolutionary: writing. Not letters, not alphabets, but symbols impressed into wet clay, cuneiform. These tablets were not meant to be myth. They were ledgers, laws, prayers, royal decrees, medical recipes, astronomic observations, and yes, stories of the gods. These tablets are not fragments, not rumors, not hearsay. They number in the tens of thousands, and among them are the earliest references to the Anunnaki. Contrary to modern speculation, the tablets do not describe a single unified religion. They reveal a complex pantheon, gods of sky, earth, water, storms, war, agriculture, and wisdom. But scattered throughout these records appears a particular term, Anunna, or Anunnaki, literally translated as the princely offspring or the royal bloodline. The texts depict them as attendants of the chief gods, judges of the underworld, divine beings assigned tasks, and sometimes in later periods, creators or founders of human civilization. In later Mesopotamian tradition, especially in Babylon, the Anunnaki appear in the Enuma Elish, a myth describing the creation of the world. Here they are the council of gods, the great assembly that deliberates cosmic matters. But when we return to the oldest Sumerian tablets, something changes. These early texts portray the Anunnaki not as omnipotent gods, but as a group of powerful yet task-bound beings sent or assigned to shape aspects of the earth. Not all-powerful, not immortal in the modern sense, but influential, authoritative,
present. And this is where modern theories begin to emerge. If they were not supreme creators, yet acted like administrators, who or what were they overseeing?
Among the tablets is one of the most controversial stories ever written, the creation of humanity. In texts like the Atrahasis epic, the gods complain of labor, of endless work maintaining the world. A solution is proposed. Let us create Lulu, the human, to bear the workload of the gods. The language is symbolic, but eerily specific. Clay, blood, mixture, formation, instruction. A workshop of creation. To some scholars, these are metaphors. To others, they hint at ancient genetic memory. But regardless of interpretation, the tablets agree on one thing. Humanity was created to serve the gods, specifically the Anunnaki. Two names dominate the Sumerian myths. Enki, god of wisdom and water, often compassionate toward humans. Enlil, a powerful authority figure, strict, sometimes wrathful. The Anunnaki, according to the texts, were often divided under the influence of these two great figures. Enki is portrayed as the protector of humanity, the one who whispers warnings, the one who bends the rules for human survival. Enlil is portrayed as the enforcer, demanding obedience and, according to some myths, responsible for events like the Great Flood. The Anunnaki operate between these two powers, as workers, judges, emissaries, and sometimes creators. When combined, these tablets form a picture far more complex than modern pop culture suggests. They show a structured pantheon, various tiers of divine beings, the Anunnaki functioning as administrators or agents, stories of creation involving clay and divine essence, and repeated references to the Anunnaki descending from the heavens. But what did heaven mean to the Sumerians? A sky realm? A star? A metaphor? To truly decode the Anunnaki mystery, we must move beyond mythology and look deeper into the Sumerian worldview. A worldview of realms above, realms below, and interactions between them. The tablets have spoken, yet they leave us with even more questions. Who exactly were these beings? Where did they come from? And why did later cultures, from Akkad to Babylon to Assyria, continue to depict the Anunnaki as both divine and strangely human-like? To answer that, we must now look beyond the words themselves and into the archaeological record, the symbols, the statues, and the artifacts they left behind. We've read the words, we've translated the tablets, but now the story shifts from myth to something far more tangible. Because across Iraq, across Syria, across forgotten ruins scattered from museums to private archives, lie thousands of physical artifacts, statues, reliefs, cylinder seals, and carvings, each depicting figures the ancient world called the Anunnaki. They are not imagination. They are not rumors. They are carved in stone. The earliest depictions of divine beings in Sumer do not show angels, nor animals, nor purely symbolic forms. They show anthropomorphic figures, humanoid in appearance, but with features suggesting something beyond human. Tall, upright posture, elaborate patterned clothing, large eyes, often unnaturally large, wings on certain figures, symbols of authority, rods, rings, buckets, pine cones. Some appear human. Some appear hybrid. Some appear otherworldly. Were these artistic exaggerations, cultural metaphors, or descriptions of beings the Sumerians truly believed existed? The artifacts remain silent,
but they are unmistakably deliberate.
Among the most controversial artifacts is one small, recurring object, carried by gods, kings, and hybrid beings alike. A shape resembling a handbag. Archaeologists call it the bucket motif. Researchers call it the mystery container. It appears in Sumerian reliefs, in Assyrian temples, in Babylonian gates, and astonishingly, in pre-Columbian carvings thousands of miles away. What did it contain? Holy water? Sacred seeds? Tools? Knowledge? Nobody knows. But its repetition across civilizations raises a question. Were they all referencing the same lost symbol? Or the same visitors? The object itself becomes a clue, a silent witness across millennia. Another artifact raises even more questions. A god, usually winged, extends a strange pine-cone-shaped device toward a human or sacred tree. Some interpret it as a symbol of fertility, knowledge, purification, or genetic transmission. But others see symbolism hard to ignore. A technological device, an instrument used by beings with knowledge far beyond their time. In the myths, the Anunnaki are described as bestowers of knowledge. In the artifacts, they are shown transmitting something. Coincidence or consistency? Cylinder seals are perhaps the most detailed artifacts Sumer ever produced. Tiny stone cylinders engraved with entire scenes the size of a fingernail.
Cylinder seals
And among
are perhaps
them,
the most
some of the
detailed
most
artifacts
enigmatic
Sumer ever
imagery in
produced.
ancient
Tiny
history.
stone cylinders
We
engraved
find
with entire
winged
scenes the
discs
size of a
hovering above
fingernail.
figures, star clusters, and planets, gods stepping out of what look like portals, and rows of beings identified as Anunnaki. These were not decorative. These were signatures, legal stamps, identity markers, meaning the Sumerians intentionally recorded their worldview in these images, not randomly, not artistically, but officially. Modern interpretations aside, Sumerian art is filled with hybrid beings, eagle-headed figures with human bodies, bull men guarding gateways, lion-headed gods holding ritual objects. To some, these are symbolic guardians, mythological metaphors. But others wonder, are these representations of biological experiments, symbolic depictions of genetic manipulation, or recordings of beings the ancients actually encountered? We cannot say for certain, but the consistency across centuries suggests one thing: these beings mattered. They were not random inventions. They were central to Sumerian cosmology. Across multiple artifacts, we see one repeated theme: the gods descend from above, sometimes shown with wings, sometimes shown in radiant discs, sometimes associated with star symbols, particularly the mysterious eight-pointed star linked to Inanna. Whether metaphorical or literal, the imagery is consistent. The Anunnaki come from the heavens and interact with Earth. The artifacts do not give us answers, but they give us patterns, shapes, symbols, scenes repeated across centuries. When the texts describe the Anunnaki, the art mirrors it. When the myths speak of descent, the carvings show it. When the legends mention knowledge given to humanity, the seals depict divine figures handing tools, objects, or energy to early humans. So now, with words and artifacts aligned, we move to the next question. Were the Anunnaki simply myth? Or could they represent encounters with something humanity has forgotten? To explore that possibility, we must now examine the science, genetics, astronomy, and the extraordinary claims that modern researchers have proposed. That journey begins in Chapter 5.
We have explored the tablets. We have examined the artifacts. But the mystery of the Anunnaki is not limited to ancient myths. It has grown into one of the most controversial scientific debates of our time. Were these beings symbolic gods of creation? Ancient rulers mythologized by their people? Or, as some researchers propose, were they visitors from elsewhere? To approach this question, we must explore the intersection between mythology, astronomy, and modern science. Long before telescopes, long before modern astronomy, the Sumerians recorded detailed knowledge of the sky. They identified the planets of our solar system, complex star constellations, lunar cycles with stunning accuracy, and even the precession of the equinoxes, knowledge we rediscovered thousands of years later. How did a civilization at the dawn of history acquire such precision? Their own answer appears in their texts, their teachers, the Anunnaki. Among the most debated Sumerian references is a celestial body called Nibiru, the planet of the crossing. The tablets describe it as a wandering star, a massive celestial body, a planet with a long elliptical orbit associated closely with the Anunnaki. Some researchers interpret these passages symbolically. Others take them literally, suggesting the Sumerians described a real, as yet undiscovered planet beyond Pluto. To this day, astronomers search for a hypothetical Planet 9, a massive hidden object disturbing the orbits of distant bodies. Coincidence? Or ancient memory? The Sumerian creation myth claims humanity was crafted, formed through a mixture of clay and divine essence. Modern genetics uses similar language: clay-like matrices, molecular mixing, encoded sequences, laboratory creation of life in controlled conditions. The parallels have sparked a controversial idea. Could the creation of humans myth reflect an ancient memory of genetic modification? While mainstream science does not support extraterrestrial intervention, the question remains provocative. Why do multiple ancient cultures describe humanity as created, not by gods of pure spirit, but by beings who worked, experimented, and engineered life? Why is the language so procedural, so technical, so unlike later religious stories? In the creation texts, one god stands out: Enki, the god of wisdom, knowledge, craftsmanship, and deep waters. Enki is described as the designer of humanity, the protector of early humans, the giver of knowledge and skills, and the god who defied the divine council to save humanity during the flood. To some researchers, Enki resembles a scientist, a geneticist, a bioengineer, a teacher. His conflicts with Enlil, a figure of authority and control, take on a decidedly political tone, almost like disputes within a ruling group. Could these stories preserve an ancient memory of a disagreement among the Anunnaki themselves, a conflict over the purpose of humanity? Mainstream science acknowledges that human evolution contains sudden leaps, rapid developments in brain size, language formation, symbolic thought, tool complexity. Some leaps happened far faster than natural selection alone would suggest. Is this coincidence? Natural evolution? Or, according to fringe theories, evidence of intervention? Most scientists reject the idea of outside influence, but the question remains: why did humanity advance so rapidly compared to every other species on Earth? Ancient Sumerians had their own answer:
because they were designed to. Sumerian texts describe events where the Anunnaki arrived from the heavens, governed the early world, taught humanity the foundations of civilization, and eventually departed. Some texts speak of their return. Others speak of their remains still hidden underground or in the sky. And almost every story ends with the same question: where did they go? And will they return? Science, myth, astronomy, and archaeology all converge at one point. Humanity's origins remain a mystery. The Sumerians believed the answer sat with the Anunnaki, beings of power, wisdom, and knowledge beyond human comprehension. If their stories contain fragments of truth, then the next step is clear. We must look for traces, sites, ruins, megaliths, and forgotten places that may hold physical evidence of their presence on Earth. To follow that path, we now journey into Chapter 6, the search for the possible ancient Anunnaki sites, on land and beneath the oceans. If the Anunnaki truly walked the earth, if they shaped early humanity, then somewhere, hidden beneath sand, sea, or stone, there must be places they touched, cities they built, temples they used, ruins they left behind. And across the world, certain sites raise questions archaeologists still cannot fully answer. Huge stones, impossible engineering, civilizations advanced before their time. Were these human achievements, or echoes of something much older? Tonight, we travel to the world's most mysterious ancient locations, sites some researchers believe hold clues to the presence of the Anunnaki.
Our first destination is Eridu, the city the Sumerians themselves called the place where kingship descended from heaven. According to the ancient texts, Eridu was the first city ever built on Earth. Not by humans, but under the rule of Enki, the god of wisdom and creation. Archaeologists agree Eridu is among the oldest urban settlements ever discovered, older than Uruk, older than Babylon. Did Eridu represent humanity's first attempt at civilization? Or was it a base of operations for the gods who guided early society? The ruins are silent, but the legends remain. Deep in the mountains of Lebanon lies Baalbek, one of the most astonishing megalithic sites on Earth. It contains some of the largest stone blocks ever quarried, including the famous Stone of the South, weighing over 1,000 tons. Even with modern cranes, moving such stones would be a challenge. Yet they were placed with millimetric precision, thousands of years ago. Who built Baalbek? How did they transport stones larger than modern locomotives? And why? Local legends claim it was a landing platform, a place where the gods descended from the heavens. To some researchers, Baalbek may have been an Anunnaki installation, a forgotten outpost from a lost age. In southeastern Turkey lies Göbekli Tepe, a site so ancient it rewrote history. Dating back more than 11,000 years, it is older than the pyramids, older than writing, older than agriculture. Yet it was built with extraordinary skill. 50-ton pillars, intricate animal carvings, perfect circles, advanced knowledge of geometry. And here is the mystery. The people who built Göbekli Tepe were supposed to be nomadic hunter-gatherers, not architects, not engineers, not astronomers. But they built one of the greatest monuments in human history at the edge of the last ice age. Where did this sudden knowledge come from? How did a primitive society create something so advanced with no known precursors? Some believe the answer lies with a group of teachers who arrived suddenly, visiting beings the ancients later called gods.
a pattern repeated across civilizations.
Beneath the soil of Turkey lies another mystery. Underground cities like Derinkuyu and Kaymakla, carved hundreds of feet below the surface, complete with ventilation shafts, food storage, living quarters, massive stone doors, protection systems, room for tens of thousands of people. These underground complexes were not simple shelters. They were engineered with intelligence and intent. Who could have built such vast subterranean structures, and why? Ancient tales speak of gods who battled on the surface, forcing humans to seek refuge underground. Were these simply mythological metaphors, or memories of real catastrophes, natural or otherwise? Off the coasts of India and Japan, researchers have discovered underwater ruins that predate known civilizations. Yonaguni Monument, Gulf of Cambay ruins, ancient stone blocks, channels, and stairways. These appear to be remnants of lost cities submerged. At the end of the Ice Age, during massive floods, or perhaps catastrophes described in global myths. The Sumerian tablets speak of a great flood, a cataclysm that reshaped the world and forced the Anunnaki to retreat. Are these underwater ruins evidence of that ancient event? Across the world stand monuments that defy easy explanation. Perfectly cut megalithic stones in Peru, the Nazca lines visible only from the sky, the pyramid layout of Teotihuacan, the Osirian in Egypt, built with megalithic stonework far older than the rest of the temple. These sites share traits: precision, monumentality, alignment to stars, unknown builders, sudden architectural genius. Were these human achievements, or fragments of a forgotten knowledge passed down from beings who came from the sky? The evidence is inconclusive, yet the patterns are unmistakable. From Sumer to Lebanon, from Turkey to the depths of the oceans, humanity's oldest structures whisper the same story. Something advanced was here, something powerful, something beyond our modern understanding. And while the ruins remain, another mystery unfolds across cultures, separated by oceans and millennia, yet telling the same tale. Beings descended from the sky, gave knowledge, and transformed the world. To uncover this astonishing global pattern, we journey next to Chapter 7, the worldwide parallels of the Anunnaki, in Egypt, Mesoamerica, India, and beyond. Wide aerial shots of ancient ruins across the world, Egyptian pyramids, Mayan temples rising from the jungle, the giant basalt heads of the Olmecs, stone temples of India, Greek columns under the sun. Across continents, across civilizations separated by oceans, humanity tells the same story. Civilizations claim they were taught, guided, or ruled by beings who descended from the sky. And this global echo brings us to a profound question. Were the Anunnaki part of a much wider pattern? Or did all ancient cultures somehow see, or imagine, the same things? Long after Sumer faded, another civilization rose on the banks of the Nile. The Egyptians spoke of Netjeru, divine beings who arrived in the distant past. Thoth, the god of knowledge. Osiris, the god-king who came from the stars. Ra, who sailed across the heavens in a fiery boat. But one group stands out, the Shemsu Hor, the followers of Horus. Ancient texts say they reigned before the first human kings. Just like the Anunnaki, they taught humans how to build, farm, and rule. Were these just myths, or memories of the same sky-born teachers Sumer described? On the other side of the world, in the dense jungles of Central America, the Maya and Olmecs spoke of gods who descended from the heavens. Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent; Kukulkan, the god who came from the sky, taught knowledge, then vanished. The parallels are unmistakable. A god arrives from above, teaches astronomy, calendar science, agriculture, rules for a time, promises to return. The same structure as the Sumerian stories of Enki and Enlil. Coincidence or shared memory? In India, the ancient Vedas describe vimanas, flying craft used by divine beings. They battled in the sky with weapons blazing like fire. They taught kings, ruled cities, and shaped early humanity. The descriptions are technical, geometric, almost mechanical, just like the Sumerian accounts of the Anunnaki's celestial chariots. Could the Anunnaki be part of this same family of sky-born beings mentioned in India? Even the Greeks, founders of Western philosophy, told of gods who descended from the clouds to rule humanity. Zeus, Athena, Apollo. They fought wars, guided kings, created bloodlines. The same pattern repeats. Gods arrive suddenly, shape civilization, fight amongst themselves, eventually disappear. This mirrors the Anunnaki saga of Enki versus Enlil, sky wars, and divine political conflict. How can isolated civilizations, separated by oceans and millennia, describe such similar stories? 3 explanations exist. 1. Shared human imagination. Humans everywhere invented similar myth structures. 2. Lost ancient contact. Civilizations exchanged ideas long before history books say they did. 3. A real phenomenon. Something, or someone, visited early humanity across the globe. Different cultures remembered them differently, but the pattern remains the same. The Anunnaki may not be the entire story, but they may represent the first chapter of a global ancient mystery. Sumer, Egypt, India, Mesoamerica, Greece. 5 civilizations, 5 origin stories, 1 repeating message. We were taught by beings who came from the sky. If these cultures are all remembering the same events, then the Anunnaki story is not just a Sumerian legend. It is a global puzzle piece. And to understand its true meaning, we must return to the event that nearly wiped humanity clean, yet appears in every culture on Earth: the Great Flood. Nearly every ancient culture, from Sumer to Egypt, from the Maya to India, speaks of a time when the world drowned, a world reset, a world reborn. This is the Great Flood, the moment that nearly erased humanity's earliest chapters. But in Sumer, this flood is not just a story. It is a warning, a rebellion, and a message from the Anunnaki themselves. Long before the Bible, long before Noah, the Sumerians wrote a detailed account of the flood. It begins with a decision, not by nature, not by gods of thunder or rain, but by the Anunnaki Council, led by Enlil. Enlil, the stern ruler, grew tired of humanity, too noisy, too uncontrolled, spreading too fast. So the council agreed.
Humanity would be removed, and the world would be cleansed. Except one god refused. Enki, the creator of mankind, could not watch his creation die. Sumerian texts say he whispered through a reed wall to a human named Ziusudra, the Sumerian Noah, giving him precise instructions. Build a vessel. Seal it with pitch. Take the seeds of life. Take the animals. Take your family. The plan was set. The reset would come. But humanity would not vanish. This is one of the earliest stories in human history of divine rebellion, protection, and survival.
And then it happened. Rain from the heavens, water from the deep, storms raging for days, perhaps weeks, cities wiped clean, temples buried in mud, civilizations erased. Archaeologists have found evidence of ancient flood layers across Mesopotamia, India, and even North America. Different cultures, same disaster. A global memory, a shared trauma. Nearly every culture remembers a flood, but the Sumerians give reasons, motives, personalities, conflict among beings who lived alongside early humanity. The Anunnaki flood story is not just a myth, it is a political drama. One god wanted us gone. One god saved us. When the waters receded, nothing was the same. Sumerian texts say the Anunnaki were shocked that Enki's humans survived. Enlil was furious. But Enki stood firm. Humanity had earned its place. The Anunnaki descended to Earth once more, not to guide as before, but to restart civilization in a controlled, careful way. This is when they introduced kingship, agriculture, order, writing. The second rise of humanity began. Modern theorists believe the flood may have been a deliberate reset, a way to control human population, erase dangerous knowledge, reshape civilization, start a new cycle. If true, the Anunnaki weren't just creators. They were managers of humanity, deciding when to reset and when to rebuild. The flood marks the moment when the world we know was reborn from the ashes of the one we lost. But the question remains, after the flood, after kingship, after civilizations rose once more, what happened to the Anunnaki? Why did they leave? Where did they go? And is there any sign they might return? The answers lie in the ancient prophecies. For thousands of years, the Anunnaki walked beside humanity. They shaped our cities. They taught our kings. They guided our first civilizations. And then they disappeared. Not in fire, not in war, not in a single dramatic moment, but quietly, deliberately, as if following a plan only they understood. This is one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in human history. Why did the Anunnaki leave? And did they truly leave at all? Sumerian records show something remarkable. Before the flood, kings ruled for tens of thousands of years. After the flood, those numbers collapse. The divine age is ending. The gods who once ruled openly among humans begin to retreat, first to the temples, then to the mountains, and finally to the sky. Civilization continues, but the gods are no longer physically present. Some scholars believe Earth's conditions may have changed. Others believed the Anunnaki had simply completed their mission. Humanity had learned enough to continue alone. The ideological war between Enki and Enlil never truly ended. Enlil believed humans required strict control. Enki believed humans deserved freedom. Their conflict shaped the flood, the rise of kingship, the control of knowledge, the destiny of human civilization. Some researchers believe this final conflict fractured Anunnaki leadership. One group departed. Another stayed behind a little longer. But eventually, even they vanished from the historical record. After the departure of the gods, humanity did something extraordinary. We built empires. We wrote laws. We mastered agriculture. We mapped the stars. We explored the oceans. Civilization no longer needed divine rulers. The students had become the architects of their own destiny. And yet, the memory of the gods never faded. Across ancient cultures, one message appears again and again: the gods will return. Sumer spoke of the return of the lords. The Maya spoke of sky beings returning at the end of a cycle. The Egyptians described the reopening of the Duat. The Hopi warned of the Watchers returning during great upheaval. Were these symbolic spiritual beliefs, or memories of real departures and expected returns? The Sumerians wrote that humanity was created through divine engineering. Modern genetics reveals sudden, unexplained evolutionary jumps. Rapid brain expansion, self-awareness, symbolic thought, advanced language. Mainstream science proposes natural evolution, but the ancient texts describe something else entirely: a deliberate act of creation. If that story holds even a fragment of truth, then humanity may carry the legacy of the Anunnaki within its own cells. We may never fully prove who the Anunnaki were, but the mystery they left behind continues to shape who we are. Perhaps they were never meant to be worshipped, only remembered. Perhaps they were never meant to return, only to awaken something within us. Because in searching for the Anunnaki, we are ultimately searching for the truth about our own origins. And that search has only just begun.